The human experience is defined by storytelling. Your life is a story. You are living out some kind of narrative. The way that other people see you is a narrative. The way you see yourself is a narrative. So when you develop an awareness of what these stories are, you can be intentional about how your story is written. Hello, angels, baddies, and bitches. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Amber Akilla. This is my cute, chaotic, and critical thinking space. My life philosophy of being hot and having fun. Follow me on all of the things at Amber Akilla, Instagram, TikTok, Red Note, Spotify and SoundCloud for mixes and playlists and music. Subscribe to the podcast, Friend Crush with Amber Akilla. These videos are also posted on podcast platforms, and I have subscriber-only episodes available on Spotify and Patreon. I want to build the Patreon, not sure how I'm going to do that. Let me know your thoughts, feelings, and feedback. I hope everyone is doing well. Today's episode is journaling, my 5-year journaling habit review as someone who is a chronic overthinker, prone to being insane, which I think is just like part of the human experience, you know? Don't deep it too much. There's no such thing as being normal or being perfectly balanced just by chance. I feel like life is going to test you and push you to your limit. And on the one hand, it's learning how to deal with the external world and improving your ability to respond outside, but then also improving your ability to respond internally. How can you shift the way that you see yourself, the way that you see the world, and the way that you respond? How can you live in a way that is intentional and authentic so that you can have meaningful experiences rather than just superficially chasing illusions of success or illusions of connection that are actually just superficial. You know what I mean? Okay, so the previous video I talked about my 5-year meditation habit, which is one of my hot girl habits. And then the second habit is journaling, aka thought dumping, and then positive scripting and affirmations. So for me, the journaling practice is twofold. Part 1, thought dumping, pulling out the weeds. The way you need to clean your room on a regular basis, you need to clean your mind, your mental palace, reorganize, filter out what is and isn't useful. And then part 2 is positive scripting and affirmations. So now you're planting new seeds, because what I've learned over time is that if you aren't intentional about developing an awareness of what's going on in your head and developing an awareness of the seeds that you're planting, other people will plant those things for you. Your mind is always absorbing what's going on around you, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. Okay, when you think about subliminal messaging, subliminals, all of these things are being processed by you whether you're conscious of it or not. So taking some intentional time each day, each week, to ensure that you're developing an awareness, you're scoping, you're doing an audit, the same way you do an audit of your physical space, of your finances. You also need to do that with your mind, okay? Because your mind is what is processing your experience, what is filtering your experience, and what is constructing your experience. So if you're not doing that, but doing all the other external things, how can you ensure that there is an integration between these two parts of your experience? So highly, highly underrated. I think that you can learn as much as you like about different strategies on how to finesse the world outside of you, but ultimately you will always have to return to a deeper understanding of yourself in order to get the most out of your external experience too. So these are the two parts of my journaling practice. When I first started, I was extremely skeptical about journaling. I was just like, why would I have to write my thoughts down? I already think it. Is thinking not enough? Blah, blah, blah. Went and hit my mental and emotional, spiritual rock bottom during my Saturn return, and I was determined to just do whatever it took to rebuild my sense of self and to live with more intention and awareness, okay? I think if you've ever read The Artist's Way, that book talks about morning pages pages, writing 2 pages every morning, just whatever comes to mind. It definitely helps to be very consistent at first because you just never know like what's buried deep inside of you. But for me now, I'm kind of at like a maintenance level, which is a few times a week participating in the journaling practice. But I think for at least the first year, I was consistent almost every single day. And I think, you know, if you have time to doom scroll on your phone, if you have time to spiral and overthink everything, entertain nonsense from some fuckboy, or emotional spiritual warfare at your job or in your friendships, or even to just watch my content, then you have 10 to 20 minutes a day where you can redirect that attention back to yourself and start to be more intentional with connecting and understanding yourself, deepening the connection between you and your inner world, okay? Not just having your attention constantly directed outside of you and then not having an awareness or congruence between you, the self, and the world that you engage with. I have my free printables, the habit trackers. I recommend trying to commit to at least 30 days straight to begin with, and then you can sort of adjust your practice as you go. If you've ever read The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem or seen me speak about this book, this is like a foundational book for me in terms of rewiring my brain. I recommend reading this book, doing the sentence completion and the written exercises. A lot of people have told me that they read this book, how it's helped them to better understand self-esteem and building like a healthy self-concept. And then the written exercises have also helped them to uncover a lot of things that they previously repressed or ignored or minimized that actually held a lot of importance in being able to move through these like psychological knots that we are all prone to having. And I also was doing that in conjunction with therapy. But regardless, starting with morning pages, morning thought dump, whatever comes to mind, you want to develop the habit of creating a space for yourself and your thoughts with little to no judgment, or learning to let go of judgment that you place around your thoughts or shame or guilt that you carry. Because then when you go out into the outside world and into your relationships and your experiences, you can be intentional about what does and doesn't affect you, what you do and don't respond to. Having a practice where you write to yourself means that you're developing an ability to differentiate between what is your voice and what is the voice of others. Write without any pressure to make sense. If you feel any apprehension around writing something, that means you need to write it down. That means there is, in my opinion, some kind of blockage around this particular thought or this particular opinion that you have. It doesn't mean that what you're writing is truth. It just means that you need to get it out there, okay? And you don't need to reread what you've written ever. I almost never go back and read. I don't write with the intention of rereading, but if you want to do that, you can. Letting yourself just express what's going on inside of you without feeling like you have to tailor what you're saying to another person or even to your own ego, you know, because when you're going through something especially, and we like to talk to our friends about it, we want to talk to our therapist about it, we want to talk to our loved ones about it, there's this illusion that you're processing it with yourself, but you're not really. You know, you might be filtering the way that you say things. There might be certain things that you don't reveal. And I think that creating this practice and a space for yourself to just be radically honest and transparent about how you feel is really important. You know, it doesn't mean that what you've written is written in stone. You're writing with the intention of just moving things outside of you. This way, you can crash out in private and then maintain composure in public. Because if you are someone that wants to grow and wants to achieve things, the more you achieve, the more attention you will get, or the more people will want something from you or seek to discredit you. It's not like being successful means that you are now free from challenge. If anything, the challenges only increase the more that you achieve. And I think that for me, especially in the last few years, I've had to deal with all kinds of bullshit. Crashing out in the journal has been great because then I can go back into the outside world, head held high, unbothered. Having sections in your journal where you're crashing out and acting crazy, that's fine. Sometimes you just have to let it out. Just because you have a feeling or a response to something doesn't mean that it's necessarily a absolute truth. Sometimes you need to uncover, move things out of the way in order to get to the truth that is important to you. Especially if you're going through like a breakup or a really big transition period and you feel a lot of confusion around something. Sometimes you just write about the same thing over and over and over again until you get sick of it. You know, you might be asking yourself, why this, why that, blah, blah, blah. I'm so confused about this. And you might write about it every day for a month. And then one day you'll just be like, okay, I actually don't care. Creating space for new thoughts to take place, for new ideas, especially if you're a creative person or you work in the creative field or you work around ideas. I feel like the journaling practice really helps you to just move things outside of you so that you have the space for new things to enter. Thinking about the same thing over and over again creates the illusion of progress and productivity that doesn't always translate into actual productivity. You know, sometimes you're stuck in a thought loop, or you have a thought loop that's stuck inside of you, or an insecurity that's stuck inside of you that you actually just need to release so that you can come up with a new idea, so that you can have space for new insecurities, so you can process other things. Stop thinking that you need to think about something over and over again until you can get over it. Sometimes you just need to let it go. And that's what the thought dumping process assists with. And sometimes you'll have like little questions and insecurities that come up that if you didn't write out would still plague your experience of something. There are lots of relationships in my life that I value a lot, and sometimes in my thought dumping practice there are insecurities that come up where I start to question my self-worth, or I start to question the way that I see this relationship or whatever. And those are all valid questions, but it doesn't mean that those questions have to dominate the way that I deal with this relationship. And then the second process is positive scripting. So once you've thought dumped, now you're writing with an intention to rewire your brain. Okay, you're reorganizing everything. You've dug out all the weeds and now you're planting new seeds, and you want to plant things that are positive. So I recommend looking at journal prompts, looking at other people's positive scripts that they might write for themselves and getting ideas. I usually divide it into different sections. So it might be traits that I want to embody, then it would be things that I want to work towards in my career, things that I want to work towards with my health and my mental, physical health, and then just general positive affirmations. I think writing the same thing consecutively helps at first, and then you can sort of adjust as you go. Similar to the meditation practice, it's not about getting rid of challenges. It's not about having your life just be blissful all the time. It's about having an anchor that you return to. Reaffirming things to yourself so that when you do come across a challenge, you can reframe your perspective in a way that is in service of your goals, in service of you being hot and having fun, you living your best life. So for example, I always affirm to myself in my positive affirmation process that I am attracting and maintaining healthy, authentic connections, relationships, and experiences. This is something that I affirm to myself on a regular basis. And when I first started doing this and there started to be shifts in my relationships, I thought that I was failing myself, because why aren't the existing relationships that I'm in able to live up to this positive affirmation that I give myself? But then I realized over time that because I was affirming to myself that I have authentic and healthy connections, those connections around me that were not in line with that affirmation were starting to shift away from me. You know what I mean? If you start to positively affirm yourself in ways that you haven't before, there might be things in your current life that shift out of the way for newer, healthier relationships to enter. And sometimes a relationship or a situation can only be positive and healthy for a period of time until something shifts within them or within you and it's no longer compatible, and you don't have to take it personally because you know and you affirm to yourself that you are only in healthy and authentic connections. It doesn't mean that you won't face challenge, because the challenges provide the contrast for you to appreciate the quote unquote good and the bad, you know, the things that are in alignment, the things that are compatible with the things that aren't compatible. You won't know what those things are without experiencing some kind of resistance or friction in your experience. And you learn to embrace that when you thought dump, when you meditate, when you have practices that connect you back to yourself in spite of all the chaos that goes on around you. Now you have a place to anchor yourself, okay? Because if you don't do this, if you don't bring awareness and intention to this practice, you might be anchoring yourself to someone else's interests without even realizing. You might be anchoring yourself to the benefit of someone else at the expense of your own needs, okay? So learning to prioritize yourself, learning to center yourself in a way that ensures that when you're showing up in your relationships, you are also contributing in an authentic way, and then you are in a healthy and equitable exchange, okay? Versus the potential for you to be exploited or the potential for you to be acting selfishly at the expense of others. When I wasn't self-focused in where I was directing my attention and energy, it was really easy for me to be affected by other people's opinions, or to feel like I had to do these things that would make other people approve of me, or I had to self-sacrifice in order to please other people or to be seen as worthy. The more I started to fill my time and energy with things that allowed me to feel like I was doing my best, allowed me to experience the benefits of prioritizing myself or prioritizing living with intention and authenticity. Yes, it caused friction or it resulted in certain fallout, but it deepened my connection with the things in my life that actually matter, with the people in my life that actually matter, the relationships that actually matter, with the work that I genuinely enjoyed doing. And there was also this process of just like, oh, all these things that I thought I needed to care about, I actually don't give a fuck about. I realized that I spent so much time and energy thinking that I had to care about things or caring about things that ultimately didn't matter and weren't my problem. And I'm still going through that process now, and trying to realign, rearrange my awareness and my intention again. It's an ongoing process. Your awareness is what gives you the privilege of being able to act with intention and authenticity. For me, I literally use like a really cheap notebook. My handwriting isn't even legible. I have no desire to read anything that's written in here. It's just committing to the practice of writing, okay? The same way that cleaning your room doesn't feel good necessarily, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. The cheaper the better, in my opinion. For me, if I invest too much money in a journal that I'm using for thought dumping, I might overthink it, I might get too precious about what I write. The whole point is just to put pen to paper and create a judgment-free space for my thoughts and feelings. The human experience is defined by storytelling. Your life is a story. You are living out some kind of narrative. The way that other people see you is a narrative. The way you see yourself is a narrative. So when you develop an awareness of what these stories are, you can be intentional about how your story is written. What kind of life do you want to live? What kind of person do you want to be? And how can you be self-determined in those things? How can you focus on the parts of that you can control and then just let go of all the other shit that other people are going to project onto you? Everyone's different, but having this practice is what has allowed me to streamline the way that I work and the way that I live. It's an ongoing practice. There's always room for improvement, but I'm very grateful that this is something that I've been able to do consistently for the last 5 years. And I have no doubt that I will continue to do so moving forward. And if there's any updates, I will let you know. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this video. If you have a thought dumping journaling practice, please share in the comments. If you have any questions, also share them in the comments. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, SoundCloud, Red Note if you're on Red Note. Subscribe to the podcast, Friend Crush with Amber Akilla. Download the 30-day Slay free habit tracker, and you can also subscribe to the newsletter, which I will eventually start writing when I have time. Yay! Stay hot and having fun. Drink lots of water. Tell your friends and family you love them. Go be a better person. I love you lots, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye! Mwah!